Thanks for joining. Welcome, everybody. In the next half an hour, I will try to share our experience with ADB, in particular with ADB Postgres Advanced Servers. And as you can see from the title of my presentation, we just think that ADB is just simple, reliable, and affordable. A very quick disclaimer, just to say that the material that you are going to see basically is just about my personal thoughts on this product, on this set of products, and it's not meant to be considered as a London Stock Exchange group statement. Also, a general warning about the fact that this presentation may contain some errors, so I really apologize for that. So my suggestion is to always check and test on your own environment the material that I'm going to present. A very, very quick presentation about the London Stock Exchange Group. As you can see, is an organization that has been established, well, a few years ago, I would say, that is based about trust, I would say. In a nutshell, just to try to present what LSEG does very, very, very quickly, London Stock Exchange Group is a global financial markets infrastructure business. What does this mean? It means that basically we provide infrastructure, aka platforms, for the global financial markets. The group is divided on three main lines of business. The first one is about capital markets. So basically is about a range of different trading platforms, while within information services, we are a global leader on financial indexing. And within the post-trade line of business, we provide risk management services. Just a couple of numbers. LSEG employs approximately 4,500 people over the world. We are headquartered in the United Kingdom in London, as you can imagine from the name of the group. But we do have significant operations in North America, Italy, France, and Sri Lanka. Okay, coming to this next slide, that basically is about my team, the team I have the luck to manage. Our mission is basically about supporting database services of capital markets line of business of the London Stock Exchange Group, no matter location or technology. This means that we are really focused about the capital markets line of business, and just to oversimplify this, mainly this is about managing trading platforms. So platforms that are really, I could say, latency sensitive, where the latency is about milliseconds. Well, actually microseconds. I would like to stress the fact that we support more than one database technology. So it means that the material that I'm going to present about EDB, it must be thought as a material of a team that is not just an EDB expert, but has a quite huge experience also on other database technologies. So when I will present specific features about ADB, from time to time I may compare this feature with other vendors. The team implements a follow-the-sun model, leveraging resources based on several locations, in particular in Asia, Europe, and America. Okay. Moving to the next slide, that basically is about how we think, why we think that EDB is simple. EDB, again, Postgres Advanced Servers is a simple technology. We think that it's simple because it's really, really simple to provision. So building new environments and deploying new environments is really, really, really simple. We managed to implement some automation about new environments provisioning using Ansible playbooks. Basically, what we do with these playbooks is about building the environments from scratch. So we receive just I don't know, a bare metal server or a virtual machine with just OS installed, and from that point we install the EDB Postgres Advanced Server Suite. This includes also standby database creation, because we always use streaming replication. I will present this later. And also we install and configure BART, so the backup and archive recovery tool from ADB, and PAM, so the Postgres Enterprise Manager agents. All these operations executed via Ansible. I'm sure it will be very, very simple for you just to Google Ansible and Google for some Postgres playbooks and adapt what is publicly available to your custom needs. We also think that EDB is simple to maintain. As a database professional, activities like patching, for instance, or upgrading are really our bread and butter. And in particular about patching, because of internal policy, we run a highly regulated business, we must patch it regularly, several times per year. And because we have a quite huge estate, we just managed to solve this problem by basically automate the whole process. And using the satellite repositories from EDB, we actually accomplish this quite easily. Moving to the next slide, we also think that EDB is quite simple to backup, in particular compared to the fully open source community edition of Postgres, because EDB provides a quite good tool called BART, Backup and Recovery Tool, that actually just allow you to implement a backup lifecycle very easily and very effectively. I would say that the only missing piece is about a full integration with the media manager, with a media manager. This means that right now we are forced to save our backups on disk space and then invoke the media manager to actually save it on tape. We also think that EDB is very simple to monitor, because as part of the suite, you get the possibility with no extra cost to use PAM, Postgres Enterprise Manager. Again, as I already explained, we actually provision and deploy agents as part of the initial setup of the environment. So PAM agents deploying are part of the basic installation that we always perform. PAM is also able to send SNMP traps to a central monitoring system. So if your central monitoring system is actually able to accept SNMP trap, PAM can be easily, well, there's a bit of work behind that, can be integrated with PAM. And PAM is also very useful to give you visibility about how your streaming replication is performing. Also, triggering alerts is something doesn't work. It's also very useful in terms of putting targets on blackouts during planned maintenance operations. Here are a couple of print screen about the graphical user interface of PEM. This is a simple dashboard that give you easy visibility about which targets are up and running and which one are not. And this is another quick print screen about how the GUI about PEM, about the workload on specific targets may look like. So in order to do a compare with other similar tools, and I'm sure you already know what I got in my mind, I would say it doesn't provide 100%, PEM doesn't provide 100% of the features that other similar tools provide, but my opinion is that is good enough, simple to maintain, simple to install, and actually it fits our specific needs. Okay, let's discuss a little bit our claim about EDB being reliable. So let's see why we think that EDB is reliable. Okay, moving to the next slide. Well, I think this is why we think that EDB, the main reason why we think that EDB is reliable, because we really like how the database replica features work. It is really simple and easy to set up at the beginning, in particular if the default settings are good enough for you. And it's really easy to maintain and manage. Again, if the default is good enough for you, it means that you can live with an async replication. So you don't have any specific requirements about reaching an RPO equal to 0 or about implementing an automatic failover capabilities. My suggestion is just to keep the default, because our mantra, generally speaking, is to try to keep it as simple as possible. On the other hand, if you got a specific requirement about implementing automatic failover or reaching RPO equals to 0, in this case, you should move to a sync fashion streaming database replica. And in this case, you may be interested about implementing also EFM, so EDB Failover Manager. Basically, is the missing is the main piece that is going to put you in a position to reach automatic failover, both intra-site and inter-site mode. We recently moved from OS clustering to EFM just because we think that EFM is a simpler solution. Because just to give you a little bit of reason behind this this choice, we think that OS clusterings may need specific network requirements, specific storage area network requirements, and also typically will need sysadmin to set up and maintain. While for EFM, you are not going to need all these three things that I just mentioned. As I'm going to show you in the next slide, the only addition, the only complication that you may need in your environment is going to be about an AFM with test node. In this slide, we try to summarize how we implement EFM for intra-site high availability and inter-site availability. I mean, availability between different data centers. Thinking about the availability available, sorry for the joke, within the same data center. Basically, we have an EFM witness nodes that check all the time that primary and standby are healthy, and that the streaming replication is working fine. In our specific setup, in this case, we want AFM to move, in case of problems on the primary, the database automatically to the standby node within the primary data center. And this is going to give you an intra-site high availability. In order to implement an inter-site availability, as you can see from this picture, you will need a similar setup within another secondary data center. In our specific case, we choose to don't have the automatic failover between primary data center and secondary data center automatically enabled, because we don't have an RTO of seconds. We got an RTO of minutes, so we can just wait for human intervention to trigger SDC. Again, this is an example of a specific service. We got other services where this is enabled, but for the scope of this presentation, I wanted to present the simple version of this EFM setup. So in this case, you will have EFM on the secondary data center checking just for the health of the databases. They are both standby on the secondary data center, because the manual intervention is going to need to actually move one of the two secondary data center standby databases to a primary. Just to give you a little bit of numbers, according to our experience, we think that about the intra-site high availability, we are able actually to reach an RPO equal to 0, because this streaming replication is sync, while the RTO within the same data center is just about few seconds. So comparable with what you can achieve using an OS clustering solution. While about moving to the secondary data center, the RPO equal to 0 basically depends about if you are in a position to run a sync streaming replication between primary data center and secondary data center, and mainly this is related to the network latency that you have between the two data centers. So if you got a good network and the two data centers are not very far, and also the workload you have on your primary is not very transactional, you are going to be in a position to reach RPO equal to 0 also within different data center. But again, this must really be tested in your own environment, because just a few milliseconds of latency between data center can make a really big difference, because running a sync replica across different data center, if the network is not quick enough, you can run the risk to actually slow down the transactional activity on primary data center. Again, this is mainly related to transactional activity. It means that your read-only activity is not relevant for this kind of exercise. Okay, moving to the next slide. Oh, that's the one that my team really challenged me. We had an internal discussion about claiming the fact that we think that EDB is reliable because of its support service. And we came to a conclusion that actually he is. So don't get me wrong. They are not perfect as every support service. Well, we run a support team, so we know that from time to time we are not very perfect. We don't meet 100% of the time the expectation of the customer. But keeping in mind that we use other database technologies, not just EDB, I think it's fair saying that this is one of the good things on the good beliefs that we have about EDB. So we really think that even if not perfect, they are easy to engage and very, very responsive. It happened to us that actually we faced a new bug, unfortunately, and they were really supportive on engaging the dev team. But as you may imagine, the dev teams runs a different kind of business, I would say. So they are, generally speaking, less responsive than support. I would say that this is quite expected. Also, we were very, how can I say, surprised about their, how can I say, attitude about trying to really help a little bit. Not just answering our questions, but also trying to help a little bit. I've written here about overstepping a little bit. So trying to provide really a good service on 36 degrees perspective. Okay, let's discuss very, very quickly why we think that EDB is affordable. Well, I think, as probably you are already aware, EDB runs a very clear and flexible license model. I would like to stress the fact that it is clear. This is very, very, very important to us, because there are situations with other vendors where the licensing model is not very, how can I say, straightforward. So you always have to chase your sales representative or even the support service to try to understand which is the support model. With EDB, you are not going to have this kind of problem, because their model is very simple and clear. Between you and me, if I was able to actually understand this from the beginning, it means that it is simple and clear. You are going to pay just the number of unicorns that you are going to use, no matter how actually you deploy them. So no matter if you deploy on a bare metal infrastructure, if you deploy them on premises, if you deploy them on virtual machine, on premises, or on the cloud, the license model is just the same. Also, I really like the fact that basically this is like support. So you're going to have an annual fee, let's say a recurring fee, not a big entrance fee at the beginning of your business relation with ADB. And this is really easy, actually, from a management perspective, in order to do your budget figures. I've written here in this slide that is almost a cloud-like model. Obviously, it's if you deploy it on prem, it's not a cloud model, completely cloud model. So it's not the fact that you can actually shut down, I don't know, dev environments over the weekend because they are not needed and you are not going to pay the fee for that specific time. But I've written here that it's almost a cloud-like model because there is a lot of flexibility. So for instance, you can move licensing between different servers with really no technical difficulties. So my suggestion, if you are interested, is about trying to understand a little bit more about the licensing model, and then you will figure out on your own how simple it is. Now here, in this slide, I didn't outline the different kind of prices, if it's a not standby or a cold standby or a dev environment or a production environment. But I think this is very, very, very linear and easy to understand. We think also is quite affordable and very good value for money because of the ad hoc training that ADB is able to provide. Recently, let's say in recent months, we engaged EDB about providing an ad hoc training for the whole team, and as I said before, the team is not based on just one location. Is a global team, and they actually managed to do it with a combination of live classes and e-learning and remote classes. This was really a good experience for the whole team. Also because together with the training, they provided also the possibility to actually get a certification about the materials that they just presented. And again, I think every member of my team just had a very good experience about these ad hoc training initiatives that we managed to run in recent months. So again, my suggestion is, if you are interested in engaging your ADB sales representative and try to see what's their offer, what they can offer. In our specific case, because we are, generally speaking, very skilled DBA on other technologies, we wanted some content that was not just what you can see on the materials, so also add-ons and lab content, and specifically created for our for our scope. And again, it was really a good experience. There are a couple of buts. So there are maybe you can think that our opinion about the EDB, our experience about EDB is 100% just good. Actually, as everything in life, it is not. There are some challenges where we engage them. As I just said, we faced a couple of points where we think that EDB can improve. I outlined here in this presentation just two of them. One is about the fact that PAM, so Postgres Enterprise Manager, has no external connector to any other central monitoring tools. And from our perspective, this is a quite big limitation, because it forces us just to rely on SNMP traps to forward our alerts from PAM to our central monitoring tools. Even if this is possible, and SNMP traps are quite an industry standard, there's a lot of work on actually extracting useful and meaningful alerts from raw SNMP traps. Thinking about this kind of activities for every specific monitoring tool that we use to feed our central monitoring tools is going to be a lot of work, believe me. So I think also because other vendors actually provide this kind of capabilities, and unfortunately this is not the case for EDB. Moving to the next slide, I think this is the real missing piece about EDB being considered as, I can say, one of the top play. Well, they are really one of the top player on this space. I think the best player in this space. It's about the fact that unfortunately it looks like there is no, at this stage, an active solution, or they like to call a multi-master replica. I know that I'm going to be challenged by ADB about that, because they claim that they just did it. But let me say that what we had a chance to be exposed to so far didn't convince us 100%. We are still in a phase where we are trying to understand if this can actually work. So there is no, how can I say, it's a story without an end. So at this stage, so we are going to work with ADB on trying to understand this specific aspect better. So please stay tuned. Maybe this can be a topic to discuss within a next, a future presentation. So I would like to thanks for your attention, and in particular thanks my team for the help and the support that they provided me on creating this presentation. And if you got any questions that I'm not going to be in a position to answer live, please feel free to reach me. These are my contacts on LinkedIn and my email. So I think now I'm ready for Q&A.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for attending. We've got a few questions that are out there, and we'll get through as many as we can over the next couple of minutes. So we're going to start out with one from Michael Pinto. And Roberto, the question that was posed is, how do you deal with privilege escalation with Ansible? Are you using sudo?
Yeah, well, before answering that, let me thanks again my team, who really helped me on creating this presentation and these materials. Obviously, this is a team effort, so I'm not alone here answering your question with this presentation. This is really a team effort. Okay, coming back to the question, I think there are two ways on managing this. You can get, well, basically, you know that the installation should be executed via root, at least part of it. So in theory, the easiest way is to have root available. But if this is not possible in your environment, it is possible to use sudo. Historically, we used both kind of solutions, so I can confirm that both actually works fine.
Okay, very good. One of the next questions was, how many and how large are your advanced server and or PostgreSQL databases running in the London Stock Exchange?
Okay, let me try to answer this. Well, first of all, generally speaking, we prefer to use EDB Postgres Advanced Service rather than the community edition of Postgres, because we run, critical services. We support critical services on a highly regulated business, so we really need to rely on a world-class support service. So we need someone like EDB who is going to be ready to help us in case of problems. I think about how many environments, I think it depends how you count them, because you can count them as database servers, so servers where you actually run at least one Postgres instance, or you can count it on instances, or you can count it on the number of databases. Just to give you a number, I think we are more or less around 100. In terms of how many of the EDB stuff and Postgres stuff we support. In terms of how large, I think it depends. There are some services where the database is not very big. There are others where it is relevant. Let me say that also the size, it depends how what are your expectations. There are people who are not impressed on petabyte databases, while there are people who actually get scared on few hundred. So in our EDB,
Next question. What sort of streaming replication are you using for both inter as well as intra? So both local as well as cross-site.
Yeah, it depends about. Generally speaking, explained with.
It looks like we're having a little bit of difficulty with Roberto's connection. Roberto, are you able to hear us okay? Okay. Let's see if we can get that. There we go. You're green now. It may just be the video. You hear us okay?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, we can hear you now. Sorry.
Okay, well, I was saying about the kind of replication. I think the idea is to do what is required. So it doesn't make sense to go for more difficult stuff if it's not strictly required. So my suggestion is just to follow the requirements that you have. Answering specifically to the question, I think for intrasite, if you are going to be asked to reach RPO equal to 0, obviously you must run a sync replica. Then again, if you got a requirement on getting also RPO equal to 0 for intersite availability, you may consider use a sync replica also in that space. But again, the network latency between the two data centers is really important. So please be sure to test a meaningful case before going live with sync replica, because obviously you may run the risk to slow down your workload on the primary database if the performance of the network between primary and secondary data center is not good enough. I can't hear you, Jamie. I'm sorry.
Oh, how about now?
Okay, good.
Okay. So to your point, absolutely, you've got to make sure you take into consideration the lag that you may introduce across sites, whether you're choosing synchronous or asynchronous. And when you're doing synchronous, what commit level are you picking? Because all of those can have an effect on the overall performance of the solution itself. Okay, I think we've got time for perhaps two more, depending upon the question themselves. One interesting question that was just posed was: were any databases migrated to EDB Postgres from other platforms such as Oracle, and if so, were there any significant performance differences? I'm not sure if you're able to hear me, Roberto.
Other database technologies, not Oracle. Can you hear me?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, I can hear you now.
Yeah, okay. I was saying that it didn't happen so far from Oracle. It happens from other technologies, but I think the reasons were not just about moving from one database technology to another. It were more about re-engineering the whole application from scratch. So together with this migration, it wasn't just a matter of changing the RDBMS layer. It was a complete re-engineering of the application. We are now thinking about moving an Oracle application, well, actually more than one. So an application that is using Oracle to Postgres, but we didn't do it yet. So I'm not able to share any, hands-on opinion about it. Maybe that's another topic for a future presentation. I can't hear you, Jamie. I'm sorry.
It looks like we're having some slight issues with the connectivity. Hopefully you can hear me now.
I can.
Okay. We'll wrap it up with one final question. And hopefully this is a good end cap to the overall contribution. So thanks again for the presentation. What were the cost savings, if you can discuss them, either succinctly or just in scale, as far as your return on the investment or the total cost of operations after moving to EDB Postgres?
Well, I'm not in a position to share the exact figures, but I think there are two things that you should keep in mind when doing this kind of exercises. I think it depends about which is your, I could say, initial database platforms, because obviously there are database technologies that are more expensive than others. And also you should, about operational cost savings, you also should keep in mind which is the background and the skill set of your team. I wouldn't say just DBA team, about I would say also the whole ecosystem around an application. So I think in most cases there is quite important cost saving involved, but the exact figures are really relevant about specific cases.
Okay, great. Thank you. And if you're willing to humor us, there was one question that I thought was interesting around the monitoring piece that we can certainly close out with for honest this time. In regards to the PEM connections and the PEM challenges you guys have faced, where you're looking at plugging into other central monitoring solutions, are there specific solutions that you've been considering?
Are you asking which is the central monitoring solution? I would like to see a connector.
Correct.
Yeah, it's Mugsoft.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good.
This is a quite, how can I say, this is a quite recent challenge that we face. So I actually didn't engage you guys. Well, I just engaged you guys to understand if it's already available. But I did engage you guys, and the answer obviously was no. But I did engage you guys on, okay, cool, can you do it? I didn't do this next phase yet.
Okay. And there was one quick question from Alan. Just he wanted to get the specific name of the monitoring tool, and what was that? You said it was what? The one that you were looking for having. Correct.
Mugsoft. Okay.
Okay. So I will look to make that answer as well as others available to folks as we wrap up here. And I want to thank everyone for your time. Roberto, I want to thank you for the presentation. Tremendous job really explaining, the customer experience that you guys have had and where you're going in your Postgres journey. So thanks everyone. Please make sure to attend obviously the talks that we've got ahead in the next couple of days, and where you're looking at more questions around the Ansible side of things, we've got a talk that is squarely focused on that tomorrow, for which we provided some information in the chat. Thanks again everyone, and thank you, Roberto.
Thank you.